AI can copy your face. The law is finally catching up. Somewhere right now, there's enough footage of your face and recordings of your voice to help build a version of you that talks, moves, and sounds like you, and says whatever someone else has programmed it to say. Not a celebrity, you. Years of Zoom calls, voicemails, hundreds of photos and videos, and the technology to turn that digital trail into something increasingly convincing already exists. So here's the question that nobody is really answered cleanly yet. When someone builds a version of you, what law says that they can't? Copyright doesn't neatly solve it. You're not a copyrighted work. Privacy law protects pieces of the problem, but it doesn't give a simple ownership right over your entire identity. And right of publicity law developed largely around people whose identities already had obvious commercial value. Actors, musicians, athletes, not a world where practically anyone can be increasingly convincingly replicated by AI. That gap is the issue. I'm Stevie, this is Girl Code of Law, and today we're talking about why your face, your voice, and your identity are becoming a legal battleground, and why the law is scrambling to catch up. Keep in mind, this video is not legal advice, it's legal commentary. If you need legal advice, hire a lawyer in your jurisdiction. So with that being said, let's get into it. For most of the internet's history, there's been a basic assumption underneath everything we do online. If I can see you and I can hear you, I'm probably interacting with some version of you, or at least something that you recorded. AI is breaking that assumption, and governments are attempting to react. On August 2nd, 2026, most of the European Union's AI Act became applicable. One of the things it specifically addresses is deepfakes, defined as AI-generated or manipulated content that resembles real people and could falsely appear authentic. Under the Act, if someone deploys an AI system to generate that kind of content, they generally have to disclose it. The idea behind this is simple. The law is starting to recognize that we can no longer assume that seeing is believing. But that only answers one question. Is the content authentic? It doesn't answer another and potentially bigger one. Does the person who created that AI content have the permission to make it? That's where the United States is moving and why they're trying to address a different part of the same problem. In June, the Senate Judiciary Committee advanced the No Fakes Act of 2026, legislation that was aimed at unauthorized digital replicas of real people. And the interesting part here isn't just that Congress is concerned about deep fakes. It's what kind of legal right we're beginning to recognize around the human part of being human. Historically, the law around likeness and persona developed around people whose identities had obvious commercial value if replicated. If a company put Taylor Swift's face on an ad without permission, there's an obvious economic issue. Her identity has measurable value, but AI has changed the premise of all that. Once the cost of replication falls far enough, you no longer need to be famous for someone to have a reason to copy you. And that is where this becomes so much bigger than celebrity law, because it affects everyday people. Here's where our existing legal categories start to look awkward. Copyright protects works, so a photograph of you may be protected by copyright. A recording of your voice may also be protected, but you, as a human being, are not a copyrighted work. And the fact that those protected pieces can be used to reconstruct a version of you raises an entirely different question. Privacy law may regulate how personal information is collected and used, but privacy is not the same thing as ownership, and right of publicity laws can address unauthorized commercial use of identity, but they weren't built for a world where an ordinary person can be replicated at scale. So we're looking at the very large gap that continues to grow between rights over content and rights over ourselves. Celebrities have already shown us what that conflict looks like. Actors fighting over digital replicas of themselves, musicians dealing with cloned voices, but focusing only on celebrity cases obscures the much bigger story. They encountered this first because their identities as celebrities were already valuable commercially. AI expands the pool to pretty much everyone. Think about scams. Someone clones a family member's voice and calls you. Or think about employment. A company builds an AI version of a former employee to keep delivering training to new employees. Think about your own face showing up in videos saying things that you never said. At that point, this isn't just a copyright problem or a privacy problem. Deepfake law may not even be a broad enough description. This is becoming an identity problem. Going forward, there are 5 questions to consider. Identity. What part of the person is being replicated? Face, voice, appearance, writing style, behavior? And then consider authorization. Did the person actually consent to being replicated? Being capable of reproducing someone with an AI tool is not the same as having the right to reproduce that person. Think about ownership. What underlying IP is involved, and how does that interact with the identity inside it? There's also authenticity to consider. Would someone encountering this content know that it was artificially generated? This is where the EU's transparency rules begin to matter. And consider monetization. Who is benefiting economically? If your identity can create value while you're not involved at all, technology has separated the economic value of a person from the person. What makes this moment both interesting and concerning is that different legal systems are attacking different pieces of the problem, but nothing is addressing the issue as a whole. Europe is focused on transparency. People should know when content is artificially generated. The US is increasingly asking whether people should have enforceable rights against unauthorized replicas of themselves. Those overlap, but they're not the same thing. One protects authenticity, the other protects identity. Eventually, we're probably going to need both of those because imagine I build an extremely convincing AI version of you. Your face, your voice, your mannerisms, and I slap a label on it. This video was generated by AI. Well, that's great. I've solved the disclosure problem, but I haven't solved the more fundamental and likely concerning problem. Why was I allowed to use you in the first place? That's the bigger fight. Celebrities and public figures just got here first because they were first to monetize their name and likeness. Their identities already had enough value that the law had to confront unauthorized use. AI now makes everyone's identity potentially valuable. Your face, your voice, your digital history, the way you think and communicate. So the law is going to have to answer a basic question. What part of being you belongs exclusively to you? Digital identity rights and the law, or lack thereof, around it is what we're exploring on Girl Code of Law. I'm Stevie. Subscribe if you want to understand what AI is doing to your identity online, your ownership, and your rights online. This is where we're going next. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.